good headlamps?
What?
Where are good headlamps?
They're in the office. Aw, my hood's not attached. Can you attach my hood, please? Hi, friends. We're just getting situated, letting folks join. And I got my black light ready. Actually, I have 2 black lights tonight. Both of them slightly different wavelengths. So a really intense one and then a more purpley one. So we'll see if we can get I'm trying to get my hood on right now. This is the hardest part. Oh my gosh. It's really hard to find the flip camera. But I don't need it like locked down.
But it's only zipped in the back.
That's fine. I don't want to feel like I'm getting suffocated here. All right, let me flip it around. To be safe out here at the beach, definitely a priority for us here. Hence why I brought my handy dandy security team, aka my husband, because it's not a good idea to go cavorting out at the beach at night by yourself, as much as I would not have any hesitation in doing so normally. But yeah, we're out at the Purdy sand spit, and you can see the sand already. And we're just checking out we're at the very beginnings of the low tide right here, where we transitioned from the rocky cobble to the sand itself. And this is where we'll start to see some really cool creatures. We have a super low tide tonight. It is a negative 2.75, and that's happening at 10:30 tonight. So we should see some pretty cool stuff. I'm imagining we'll see some moon snails. We'll probably see a ton of them. Oh, I already see our first sea star. We've got a gorgeous mottled sea star right next to a clam siphon. That's what that squirt of water was right there, that hole. Mottled sea stars, Evisterius treshellii is their scientific name. They are a very common sea star that we see intertidally a lot. Thank you for the love, Steve. Good to see you on the live. For those of you who are new to us, this is what we do. Harbor Wildwatch is a nonprofit organization. We do environmental education with the goal of inspiring stewardship for this incredible body of water, as well as the greater oceans. So thanks for tuning in with us. Any gifts that you give us through our live help to support our mission of inspiring stewardship. So hopefully we get a lot of you gifters out here tonight. Let's see what we got here. We got a moon snail shell that is empty. No hermit crabs to speak of. Nobody home, but that gives you an idea of the size of the snail that we're going to find tonight. I'm kind of surprised I haven't spotted any already, but I guess we're not quite low enough. Now we're to the eelgrass. This is an invasive species, a Japanese eelgrass. But when we get to the Japanese eelgrass, it's only a short walk to our native eelgrass. We've got another beautiful mottled star. This beach, for whatever reason, tends to have more of these blue varieties of mottled star. Ooh, here we've got a lot of things. There's a horse clam here that has an anemone living on it. So on the horse clam, all you'll really see is their siphon here. You got 2 holes. One pulls water in and one squirts water out. And then they have this kind of thickened, horny area around the outside that's gonna be what gives the horse clam such really good super soaker capabilities. And then I'm noticing there's a couple of hermit crabs around, lots and lots of shrimp. But let's take a look with the black light here. This is an anemone that does not typically fluoresce. So let me cycle through my headlamps. But what does fluoresce are the crustaceans for sure. The opening on that clam siphon is fluorescing. There's some algae on the shell. A lot of these little snails. There's a bunch of hermit crabs right over here. The shells that they're in are kind of orangey, and then the animal themselves is a little bit teal. And so we'll see tons and tons of interesting fluorescing creatures out here tonight. So let's go a little lower and see what else we can see.
I'm gonna go grab another flashlight.
Oh, okay. Thank you, dear. All right, look at this. What a pro. He's already found my next topic creature. Oh, we've got the Patrick sea star. This is a giant spiny pink sea star. A gorgeous one. The light, I use a couple of different lights. The one that is really strong ultraviolet is the lumen shooter, and I believe it has a 360 nanometer wavelength of lens. And then the other one that I have is I want to say 335 maybe. I might be making those numbers up, but it's somewhere in my pocket here. Hold on, show it so we can compare. It's a lot bigger, and it's this kind of gear light one. Really nice and bright. They're both pretty cheap, easy purchase to make, and you can see some really cool stuff. But unfortunately, the spiny pink star does not glow whatsoever. It doesn't fluoresce, but it is just deliciously bubblegum pink. Always call this the Patrick the sea star. This one here is the largest 5-rayed star species in the world. They get nearly almost 2.5 feet across, and you can see their tube feet here. At the tip of each arm is a little eye spot. And this one is still in the water somewhat, so it's still able to move. During low tide, it's not uncommon for these animals to be exposed completely to the air, and tonight we have a particularly low tide that is going to strand a lot of these animals temporarily. It's nothing that they can't handle, and the nighttime low tides that we experience in the wintertime are much easier on the sea life to withstand than the summertime low tides, which happen during the middle of the day and the heat of the day. So for example, in 2021, we experienced a very huge heat dome phenomena. We had 113 degree temperature at 4 p.m. and that was a negative 3-foot tide at 4 p.m. So a lot of our sea creatures were incredibly stressed out by that. But a nice cold rainy night like tonight is perfect for them. The air temperature is actually right about the same as the water temperature. It's about 45 degrees in the water, and I want to say it's like 42 degrees Fahrenheit in the air. It feels colder though. The wind is a little blowy. Apologies for any wind noise that my microphone picks up. And it is raining. That's what all those little flashes that you see is just the rain reflecting. Yeah, these sea stars can move quite fast, and actually it's kind of doing something interesting up here. One, I think it's waving at all of you. Hello. But each arm is lined. Their suction cups have some sensory ability to like taste and smell their surroundings, and no brain to really process that information. So it's kind of like each arm for themselves, and whichever one has the strongest source of smelly deliciousness is where the animal ends up going. They do have light sensors at the end of each arm. My light is no brighter than the sun. It might be wondering why it's light in the middle of the day or light in the middle of the night. But honestly, there's no brain. So not a lot of thoughts, just vibes for this creature. But a really good view of those tube feet here. Each one of these is a little suction cup. They maintain the pressure within their body systems using water. They don't have any blood, so they are hydraulically powered, which is kind of wild. And you can also see the shadows kind of give it away, but along the edges of the skin, in fact, their whole entire top surface is covered with gills. And the reason sea stars don't let anything live on them is because of those gills. So there's not going to be any barnacles on this animal. There's not going to be any seaweed or algae growing over it. They keep themselves really, really clean, and they do that with the aid of these teeny tiny little pinchers called pedicelaria that protrude through their skin and attack anything that lands on them. In the summertime, when it's much warmer, I will place my hair on the sea stars, and the pedicelaria will grab onto the individual hairs, thinking it's something that's trying to land and grow on them. And they can support their own weight using their pedicelaria, at least for the smaller ones. I probably would not dangle this creature by its teeny tiny pinchers. It's such a cool animal, and it's moving quite well, which is fun. But the tide is way out. You can see how far the tide is out. So let's go see some stuff. Let's go see, and then we'll get the black light out so we can really get a good idea of what's out here. I don't like to walk using only the black light because it's hard. It's hard to see stuff that's here. So I'm looking, there's a ton of shrimp in these little puddles, and they glow really nicely with the black light. So let me show you what I mean. So the eelgrass shows up that bright red, and then the shrimp are these little teal guys, and they are everywhere out here. They just sort of zoom around. Some of them get buried down in the sand, others sit right on the top, and then there's usually a ton of crustacean plankton in the water as well, and it is attracted to my UV light, and so sometimes we'll see swirling little crustaceans zooming around in there. All right, light back on so I can walk and not squish anybody. Whenever I see a moon snail shell that's sitting upright like this, I like to just give it a little toss to see if there's a hermit crab inside there. There is a species called the black-eyed hermit crab around here. Oh, okay, I've got a couple of really cool things to show you. One, here's a sea star in this little puddle, and it has a scale worm on it. So that little worm right in its armpit there is a commensal relationship, or I guess a symbiotic relationship, where both animals benefit. The worm defends the sea star against larger predators. So like if that pink star were to try to take a bite out of this mottled star, not really a bite, but if it tried to capture it and eat it slowly by digesting it externally. That's a tangent I wasn't ready for. The worm would come to its defense, and they have these biting jaws that can reach out. Oh, hello to whoever's honking at me. And then the other cool creature that I wanted to show you is this moon snail here. But before we go away from this star, let me just see if the worm glows at all. Let's see. Yeah, it does. We got a little bit of fluorescence happening there. This is called biofluorescence. Non-living things can fluoresce too. You've all seen like glow-in-the-dark stickers. Oh, here's another mottled star. We're about to see a ton of them. But that's all that the fluorescence is. It's essentially taking in one wavelength of light and reflecting another. All right, we got a moon snail here, our first one of the night. This is a quite old moon snail, and I can tell that one from the size. It's pretty big. So there's my hand for some scale. It's a pretty big animal, but I can also tell that it's big because it's got barnacles living on the top surface of their shell. So when they get big, it becomes more difficult for them to travel under the sand surface, and they kind of just stop going all the way in. And that allows barnacles in the water to settle on their shell and grow there. And the barnacles don't hurt the snail at all, although I'm sure it is probably a little more irritating to their foot. The foot is the slimy part right here, and they are quite sensitive. So I'll get my finger wet and give it a little touch, and you'll see how it moves. It's like, ooh, hey, that tickles. You know, if we can anthropomorphize a snail, why not? And if you're wondering what it feels like to touch a moon snail, it's a bit like handling raw chicken. If chicken could move, if chicken was ticklish, it's about what it's like. Oh, thank you. I need a better pocket. Can you just carry that one? Thank you. As we found my black light, my backup black light. Oopsies. Here's another moon snail. And this is how we normally see them during a low tide. It's just a mound. Often you will be able to see a little bit of their flesh kind of peeking out. That little section right there gives away that there's a moon snail in there. But quite often they're just beneath the surface. Here's another one that's totally out. And again, it's usually the big ones that are out like this. So really, really big snails. I am being very careful where I step. So apologies for the terrible cinematography that occasionally occurs. This is not an easy place to walk. So moon snails can live a couple decades. I would say probably 15 to 20 years is really pushing it for them, but you can age a moon snail. Let me see if I can find a moon snail shell that's not occupied and see if I can show you their growth lines that they have. And they put on a new layer of shell each year, and they add to it more in the summertime and less in the wintertime. And so you can age them by looking at those growth rings. All right, we're right to the water's edge. You have a hole in your boot, I will remind you. I'm not the only one who floods their boots. My husband's guilty too. It's a pretty calm night tonight. There's a little bit of wind, but really not a ton. But I like, you can hear the plovers, or maybe that's a killdeer. I can never tell them apart, especially in the dark. We're not looking for anything in particular other than we like to see the sea life out here. So we've got some beautiful sea stars. I'm also got my black light out tonight, so we're just checking to see what things are really kind of fluorescent out here. So the eelgrass fluoresces this crazy red color, which is really neat. And then a lot of the shells and some of the algae are bright orange. A lot of the red algae is that orange color too. You found the moon snail shell for me. Oh, I need to turn my light. Will you turn my headlamp on? Okay. So this one is fairly long dead, but we can see a growth ring like between here and here. And this one was eaten by a red rock crab. So I would say there's a growth line here, there's one here, there's another there. So maybe 6 or 7 years old this animal was when it died. And this front edge being broken is the telltale sign of red rock crab predation. Red rock crabs have really incredibly strong pinchers, and they can get behind the operculum, which is the trap door that all snails have to kind of keep themselves in their shells. Ooh, but I bet that algae on that moon snail shell fluoresces really nice. So let's see. Move your light, dear. Yeah, see how it's bright orange like that? That's all a coating of algae on it. Oh, there's a really cool animal right there. This is an eelgrass isopod, and he's just kind of twirling around that eelgrass stem there. This is a little bug. It's related to the roly-polies and pill bugs that you might see in your yard. Fun fact about those guys, you can tell where somebody grew up by what they call that animal. There's been some linguistical studies on it. I grew up calling them potato bugs and then pill bugs, and roly-polies kind of too. Some people call them woodlouse. But yeah, it's kind of fun to look at common names through that lens. Oh, wow, there are so many sea stars here. And not surprisingly, lots of that blue color. They're not always blue like this. This beach tends to have a really high number of those beautiful blue stars. Here's another here. This one is regrowing some limbs. So you can see 2 of its limbs are a bit smaller and stubbier than the others. And that can happen for lots of reasons. They can get, eaten by things. So like a seagull might make a snack out of them, crabs, that sort of thing. Or they might be recovering from sea star wasting disease, which is a pretty terrible disease that's affected our sea stars for over a decade now. What do you find in there?
Oh, this little berry shrimp dead.
Oh, little shrimpies. Little Krangen shrimp.
Big guy, a couple inches. Oh, this little berry shrimp dead.
Oh, little shrimpies. Little Krangen shrimp.
Big guy, a couple inches.
And apologies if I lose connection. Sometimes when I bend down, it shorts out my service. So I will try not to bend down for you so that you can keep up with us here. Wow, here's a pretty purplish color of mottled star. This one is kind of a blue base skeleton, but with orange gills, which kind of gives it that pinky purple color. We got a beautiful plumose anemone here. Who's eating something? Oh, that blue one's eating something? All right, we got a sea star here who's eating. So when they get all humped up like this, that is how they eat. So sea stars eat in one of the weirdest ways imaginable. They're carnivores, and so they will eat basically anything that they can catch. But for this species, that means slow stuff, dead stuff often. Things that can't move, like barnacles or mussels or clams or oysters. And usually what they'll do is they'll use their tube feet underneath to pull apart any shell that's there. And then they'll hump upwards to make space for their stomach to come out of their body, and they kind of drape that across whatever it is that they're eating, and then digest it and liquefy it and bring it all back in. So I always say it's an animal that its stomach touches its food before its mouth does. We got another big moon snail here. This one is really clean and pristine. Even though it is in the large enough size to be cruising on the top. So probably this year, here's a bunch of mucus. These snails use mucus to cut down the friction as they travel through the sand. And apologies that I am not super great at answering your questions that you're posting in the comments. I have to walk and talk and not step on sea creatures all at the same time, which is tricky. Wow, more beautiful blue sea stars.
It's a lavender one over here.
Thank you for the gifts. A lavender one. Ooh, look at you. So this is a spiny pink star that is purple. I have never seen one this colored. This is marvelous. Maybe everything at this beach just sort of turns blue if you're in a echinoderm. What a stunning specimen. Yeah, this is the spiny pink star. Pisaster brevispinus, I believe, is their scientific name. Thank you, Amanda. What just such a cool picture. Love, will you take some good photos of this one so I can put that on iNaturalist? We like to document animals that we see. So I like to get good up close images of these cool things. So thank you, dear, for photographing that. Especially like the color. Can you get it next to my skin so we can see that it's purple? Yeah. Love it. Look, it's got a little attitude. Yeah. Little sassy sea star. So they are alive. They do move, just not fast. But I'd love to see that. That is a unique color. That spiny pink star is almost always exclusively bubblegum pink. Oh, here's a great find. This is a sea cucumber, a California sea cucumber. It's, believe it or not, related to those sea stars. It's in the same phylum, so it's not super closely related, but in the spiny skin phylum Echinodermata. And this animal, instead of having like radial symmetry, like flattened like a pie that you could cut it, they still have pentaradial symmetry, but it goes lengthwise. So they have 5 strips of muscle that runs this direction. Most sea cucumbers have 5 rows or 10 rows of suction cup feet. This one has suction cup feet only on the underside of it. And it looks a little sad right now. It's a little, dare I say, flaccid? Can I say that on a live? But it's totally fine. As soon as the water surrounds it, it will perk right back up again. So cool to see this animal. And this is like a pretty good size one. Their size is a bit deceiving because when it's like feeling comfortable, it will stretch outward and absorb water from the environment and be really big and floppy, or it can kind of withdraw that water and looks like this. People absolutely do eat this. This is a species that is highly sought after, actually. It's got 5 rows of muscle that people eat. I'm just noticing there's so many sea stars out here. There's another blue mottled star, but then there's what I like to say, the flamin' hot Cheeto sea star as well. I have never tried the sea cucumbers. I'm not joking when I say somebody told me they taste like chicken. Here's another. Oh no, that's our same. I'm backtracking. That's the same purplish pink star we saw. Okay, let's keep going in the same direction and see if we can see something new. Holler at me, dear, if you find something cool. Another moon snail. Really lovely. Oh, an anemone? Oh, okay. He found a closed up anemone, and not much to show when they're all closed up. But these moon snails are so cool. This is the Salish Sea. It is an inland body of water surrounded on all sides by land. It's probably technically not really a sea. It's not nearly big enough when you think of things like the Mediterranean Sea or the Sargasso Sea, those sort of things. But we call it the Salish Sea. It's also, you might also have heard of it as Puget Sound, but that is just the lower sort of United States portion of that body of water, when the entire ecosystem extends all the way up into Canada, around the base of Vancouver Island and throughout the Straits of Juan de Fuca. Here's another. Ooh, 2, 3. Oh, we got so many sea stars here. So we got a little tiny guy down here. Got this beautiful bluish one, and then there's like a dark teal one over there, a gray one. Sea stars are doing well, which is a great thing to see. We love already, wow, you guys are really ambitious. So this is probably the number one question I get asked throughout my career is, what are those rubbery gasket sand things on the beach? This is the eggs of the moon snail. And so the female moon snails will lay this collar. They basically go down underneath the surface of the sand. They mix up sand and mucus on either side, and they extrude it. And the size of the egg collar can tell you the size of the snail that laid it. So this is a little bit bigger, but essentially the inner section right here would be where the snail shell is, and the outer section is how wide their foot is. And this has about 500,000 eggs in it that are sandwiched in between the inner and outer sections. You can kind of see how it peels away at the edges, and the eggs are laid in between there. So yes, it's not trash, it's not a gasket, it's not made of rubber, it's not a equestrian bell boot that got left behind or some weird ceramics fail. It's eggs of the moon snail, which is far better than any of those other things being left on our beaches. And starting now, I guess, in through the spring and summer, we'll see lots and lots of those egg collars being laid by the moon snails. The mating takes place underneath the surface of the sand, so it's a little more rare to see, although sometimes they get lazy and they don't go all the way down, and so you can see that happening on top. Not that you can see anything, you'll just see 2 snails together closely. That's all. So these eelgrass beds are really important habitat for tons and tons of animals. The moon snails like to be here because there are clams here. Although you won't see too many clams because their shells are going to be beneath the surface until they die, and then we see the shells. And this one is one that was eaten by a moon snail, and it started to drill through here right by the hinge, is where the snails will damage the muscle that holds the shell closed. So they have an adductor muscle on the inside that holds the clam shell closed and keeps out predators. But if you're a moon snail, you can lick and lick and lick and lick through. It takes a couple days, but you can lick through that, damage the muscle, and then it will open like this, and then they can eat the clam. So all over on this beach, you'll see those holes on the clam shells. Let me see if I can find a bent nose clam are these little ones, but of course they only drill one side. And now that I'm talking about it, it's going to be hard to find one to show you, but there it is. We've got that kind of little characteristic countersunk hole there. And they're not drilling it. They're not spinning around on the clam. They're just licking over and over and over again. They have a round radula that's like a chainsaw. They also secrete some hydrochloric acid to help with that process, which is really cool. So you'll see those everywhere. That first one that we saw where it didn't quite go through, the clam probably suffocated because the moon snails can use their giant foot to kind of wrap it around. And if they can suffocate the clam before they drill through that muscle, they'll take the easy way and eat them that way. We are down in Purdy Spit right now in Gig Harbor. Y'all should come visit. This is a great spot. Wow, look at the size of this moon snail shell. Holy moly. Oh, and we've got a chitin on here. So this chitin right here, this is a small woody chitin. Chitins are a primitive snail, well, how do I want to say this? They are an extremely ancient species of snail-like mollusk, but instead of having the spiral shell, like you can see nicely on this moon snail shell, they have 8 plates along their back, and those plates can articulate, they can conform to various surfaces. They can kind of curl up a little bit. And these animals are essentially the same as their prehistoric relatives that lived, during the time of the dinosaurs. Ooh, I just heard, you might even be able to see it. Way in the distance, there is a great blue heron. That is super cool. Here's the flaming hot Cheeto star. Not really. This is a mottled sea star, Evisterius trischelii. But the orange gills on an orange skeleton, I always say looks like hot Cheetos. Flavor blasted sea star. Oh man, I was hoping this rain was gonna let up. It was not supposed to rain right now, which is always, the sea creatures, they don't really care that much unless it dumps a ton of rain and it changes the chemistry of the water because they want to be in salt water. But they are adapted to this low tide winter summer schedule. Our low tide tonight is at almost a -3. I want to say it's a 2.75 at like 10:30. I don't know what time it is. It's probably right about now, actually. What you finding, dear? Oh, good. More moon snails. Like we don't need more moon snails. Let's go to the bridge. You can kind of. I did not see these anemones. Look at these anemones. So this is a plumose anemone. This one's kind of folded over a little bit. This one's still standing up straight, although with the glare of my headlamp, it's a little hard to see. Thank you, Jen. This is the Purdy Sandspit in Gig Harbor, Washington. We've got a graceful crab here, but I don't know if you're alive or not. You're not looking very alive. Oh no, you are. You are alive. Hi, friend. So this is a graceful crab, one of the best crab species that you can interact with. That's bigger than your thumb. This looks like a very crabby crab, but is one of the few species that I don't hesitate to handle because they are just so docile, and I can show you what I mean. So they do more posturing and positioning. So as soon as I pick this animal up, it just kind of freezes. Often what I'll do is just kind of cradle them in my hands, so I'm not even squeezing it or lifting it up at all. like some people will say like, oh yeah, hold it like a hamburger, which is not the best idea, because they can, of course, reach underneath them. And then as soon as you let them go, they just carry on. Notice that crabs' legs move side to side. So if you're ever holding crabs, whether, you're collecting crabs, you're foraging for them, or you're just exploring them, you always want to hold them low to the ground so that you don't harm them if they fall out of your hands very suddenly. They can move fast when they want to, and it surprises a lot of people when they move suddenly sideways. So you always want to keep them really close to the ground. But yeah, graceful crabs, I love them. They're great. They're really easy to spot. This time of year, a lot of the crabs are getting ready to mate and bring about the next generation of crabs. Sort of from now through the spring and early summer, we'll see lots of those guys. All right, I'm gonna try to walk fast actually, because this is very stinky sand that I'm in. And I don't want to lose my boots. Here's another spiny pink star. Love to see those guys. Thank you to those of you who are answering the questions where we are for people. I can't type and walk and talk all at the same time. I tried to pin a comment, but it didn't work. But we are at the Purdy Sandspit in Gig Harbor, Washington. Another spiny pink star. So all anemones have cnidocytes or nematocysts, the stinging cells they're able to capture prey with. Plumose anemones, though, have really weak nematocytes. They, like, if you touch them, you don't even know that you're touching them. You can't feel them at all with your fingers. They're really focused on the tiniest types of plankton, so they're not going to be catching things like a fish that's swimming by. Whereas some of the other anemones, like, well, fish-eating anemones for one, or plumose anemones, or not plumose, sorry, that's the one we're talking about. Christmas anemones and fish-eating anemones have much more potent stingers. The green surf anemones that you see on the outer coastal tide pools have some of the strongest nematocysts of all, because they are eating things like fish. But these guys, there is so much plankton in our waters, they really don't have to have strong stingers at all. So I don't hesitate to touch these guys. As long as you're gentle, you won't hurt them, and they won't hurt you. But this is a species that some people are sensitive to. I try to keep like my thinner skinned areas away from brushing up against anemones. Things like your inner wrist or your face would be a bad idea to touch. All right, let's see. Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked because I'm like, oh, let me just go walk into the water a little bit, but that's not what I want. Anybody home in this moonsnail shell? No, empty. Lots of clamshells on this beach from moonsnail activity. Moonsnails got to eat. Anywhere you can find clams, you will likely find moonsnails. And they are an important part of the ecosystem. They open up new territory for those larval clams to land. And so on beaches where you have good, healthy populations of those predators, we actually see higher diversity of clams, which is all great. Oh, that rain is really coming down. You probably can't really tell. I mean, maybe if I aim it at the water, you can kind of see the reflection of all these raindrops, but it is unpleasant to say the least out here. You're hopefully all warm and dry. If you want to post in the comments where you're watching from, I love to know that information. I love to know where we're sharing the Salish Sea with, because chances are pretty good that you have a connection to this place in some way. Because I could hop in a kayak right here and make it to like 90% of the world. Okay, maybe not that far, but our oceans are all connected. And this body of water, this has salt in it from the ocean. It's connected. And so maybe I'm connected to all of you. So post in the comments where you are. Maybe post your weather too. It is rainy and least the wind has died down some. It's probably about 42 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about the same as the water temperature here in the wintertime. All right, we're coming up to the spot where there's usually lots of ochre sea stars. When we transition away from that sand section to more rocky cobble, here's another gorgeous spiny pink star. Just look how pink it is. Oh, it's gorgeous. Thank you for all the likes and those of you who are sharing this live stream. That is so helpful to us. We are a nonprofit group and we never know where our next major donor is going to come from. Half of our income comes from donors. So individual people who just jive with our mission of inspiring stewardship and want to help out. So if that's you, head on over to our website, harborwildwatch.org, or you can give us those gifts through TikTok. And even if you can't give, just being here and listening to us, sharing, seeing our videos, that all helps too. So we appreciate all of you. Although I have to say, I'm not here for you. I would be out here by myself doing this, even if you guys are not here. This is my passion. This is my job. This is my life's calling. I love teaching people about the amazing world that we live in. Okay, I promised black light. Sorry. I keep getting distracted with stuff that doesn't even need to glow to be cool. But let's turn off my headlamp here for a second and get out the old ultraviolet light and see what we can see. So right away I noticed that the eelgrass is just blood red. The red algae glow this orangey color. A lot of the shrimp are teal, and there are so many of them, they just sort of zoom around. The crabs are also teal because they have the same molecules making up their carapace that the shrimp do. This is a little green shore crab. Let's see what color you really are. Oh yeah, you're white. So this is why common names are not the best. We probably should be calling these hairy shore crabs instead of green shore crabs because they have little characteristic hairs on their back legs, which distinguishes them from the purple shore crabs, which are not always purple either. The purple shore crabs are more reliably purple than green crabs. Green crabs are green. But under the black light, they all glow teal, which is kind of fun. I'm still waiting to be like just monumentally surprised by something that glows. Well, like there's a really bright little snail shell there. It's kind of cool. Why are you brighter than all these other snail shells? You guys can hear the road. We're very close to the roadway here. So this is an area that tends to, unfortunately, accumulate lots of trash. So we do organized beach cleanups here. We partner often with the South Sound Surf Rider organization, which is an amazing group. We'll actually weigh and quantify all of the trash that's found and study it, which is super cool. Here is a red rock crab, a female red rock crab. And I can tell that just from the shape of her carapace and her claws. So I showed you the graceful crab earlier, which is really easy to handle and is quite calm. The red rock crabs are, I often say, the crabbiest of all the crab species. So this is a don't try this at home type situation. I'm a certified crab wrangler and professional. I've been doing this for many, many years. So yeah, we've got a female here. I can tell it's a female. Because of these swimmerettes that are there. That's where she's going to hold her eggs. And she does not stop when lifted up out of the water. The graceful crab just kind of posed there and sat still, but this crab is going to keep trying to walk and keep up with those pinchers. The females are a little less aggressive than the males. The males have much larger pinchers, so they have greater range to get you. And let's see what she looks like underneath the black light. Why not? So her carapace does have some growth on it. She's got some barnacles and looks like some algae growing on her. Although it is a little bit teal on the undersides, which is really kind of cool. Sorry, I tend to look around my phone instead of on my screen because real life is way cooler than my screen, and so I'm sometimes just totally off kilter. Sorry. You should not worry at all about seeing barnacles on crustaceans. Barnacles are not parasites. They don't harm the animals that they're on, with the exception of if they get into like a softer joint section, that might be irritating for the crab. But as soon as that crab molts and sheds its outer skin, those barnacles are gone. They don't take anything from the crabs. They just might be a little bit uncomfortable, but nothing to worry about at all. I mean, maybe if you ask the crabs, they have a different opinion, but they're not like parasites. They're not bloodsuckers. They're not infiltrating that outer carapace at all. There's lots of these plumose anemones out here. That is cool. I wish the plumose would glow. They don't at all. A lot of anemones do fluoresce quite nicely, but not these ones. All right, we're coming up to an area that often has a different species of sea star. So we've seen the mottled stars, those ones with the long limbs there. And there's usually a bunch of purple ochre sea stars. Now, the word ochre means like a tan color because the ochre stars come in tan and purple. Got some bigger mottled stars. These are a little bit older. This is probably a 2 or 3-year-old individual next to my extra tough boot here. This one is regrowing a limb, so that shorter limb is newer. Here's the same species, but just a different color. There are a ton of them. Oh my goodness, look at this purple color. Aren't you marvelous? And then the brown are really well camouflaged. Holy moly, there are so many. You don't even notice until it's just the like change in texture. So there's one there, another there, another there, another there, one here, another there, another there. Oh my goodness, they're everywhere. This is great. I'm gonna really watch my steps, so apologies for the terrible film quality that you're about to experience because I gotta not step on these creatures. There's a nice blue one here. My favorite, the Flamin' Hot Cheetos. The orange on orange. This is kind of cool right here. This is some sargassum weed, but it's got a bunch of hydroids on it, and I want to see if the hydroids glow under the black light, so let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. So these hydroids are related to anemones. They're colonial animals generally, and so they will grow atop one another, but they're bright orange. Oh, there's a barnacle molt right there. That little wavy teal thing is the molt of a barnacle. Lots and lots of shrimp activity. Oh, we've got some skeleton shrimp here. Let's see if you can even see them with... Oh yeah, you can't even see them. They're so small. They're a species of amphipod. They're kind of right here and here. Waving back and forth to one another. And if you've ever seen the movie Alien, this is basically Alien. Like, it's just a skeleton shrimp. You know, that bursts through your chest. Super freaky. Oh my goodness, the number of shrimp here is incredible. I know. I'm sorry for not looking at my screen while I'm filming. Half the time I'm looking, like holding and looking in one spot, and then my brain and my eyeballs are looking in a totally different direction to find something cool to show you. Try to have my next thing in the bag. Oh yeah, look at these stars. Oh yeah, here we go. We got the purple stars. So this is a species I wanted to show you while we walked all this way, is to get to these gorgeous purple ochre sea stars, Pisaster ocraceus. And they are, the ochre part of their name comes from the tan version, but they also have this gorgeous purple version as well. And they're carnivores, which is a little strange because we tend to think of carnivores as being like fast, big predators, right? Like big, scary stuff. But sea stars are predators too. They're just slow.
One out of water.
Oh, you gotta, oh yeah, okay. So out of water, another mottled sea star. I gotta watch where I step. I can't see when you aim at my feet because my brain is looking at my light. So this is the ochre sea star. There's a plumose anemone looking a little sad too. The tide that leaves these animals behind will be back in a couple hours. And so they just kind of have to chill here until it returns. This is totally normal. They're adapted to it. Intertidal sea life is some of the most incredibly hardy animals that you'll ever find. Here's a little juvenile red rock crab. A little baby. Or no, just kidding. It's a graceful crab. The way to tell the difference between those two is the white-tipped pinchers are common on graceful crabs. Keep your eyes peeled for some fish, dear. There should be, this is good pipefish territory. Last month we saw a good number of pipefish, and oh hey, there's a hairy helmet crab I didn't even notice. And this is a cool animal to look at underneath the black light, so here we go. So the hairy helmet crab has this weird kind of trapezoid shaped carapace, and they're covered with little hairs all over their body. And this is a species I didn't really see a ton of until about 10 years ago, when sea star wasting really ramped up and took away a lot of the sunflower stars from this habitat. So in the absence of that major predator and scavenger, this major predator and scavenger has filled that role somewhat. And they are one of the fastest crabs around. All right, and then we've got some sargassum here, which is this really cool type of seaweed that's kind of floating there. More sea stars. So many sea stars. So many crab. Lots of little glowies. These are all Sitka shrimp, these little teal guys that you see everywhere. Oh yeah, they're like, don't look at me. So this species of sargassum often will have animals living on it. There's a hermit crab sort of clinging to the branches, like right there. See his little teal legs that glow in the black light. Sorry, it's really hard to focus on those guys because I either have to lean way over or I have to zoom in. Another gorgeous purple ochre star. I wish the ochre stars really fluoresced, but they don't particularly. Nothing too exciting. So we never know what we're gonna see on these lives. I mean, I have a rough idea. This is a beach near and dear to my heart, and so I'm often out checking out this place. It's also one of the few places where you can get like beach access because so many beaches are parks unless you live on the water, which I don't. And so you have to get either permission from the people who have the land access or find a park that's open at night. Yeah, so where in the world are we? We are at the Purdy Bridge, the Purdy Sand Spit, which is the gateway between Gig Harbor and the Key Peninsula, which is this beautiful section of land that sticks out into the sea. We're Gig Harbor's across the Narrows bridges from Tacoma, and then Tacoma's south of Seattle. So we're, if there's no traffic, about an hour south of Seattle. That purple color really stands out. This is not Photoshop, people. I have no filters on whatsoever. They really are that purple. There's my skin tone and my bright green ring for some color perspective. So many shrimp. It is wild to me. The ground is just swimming with shrimp. Yeah, and all this life, it's not out just because it's nighttime. It's out all the time. We just have access right now because of the low tides happen in the winter at night. So you can come back here in June on a negative 2.75 tide and see all this same life. It just would be in the daytime. A little bit of it's seasonal, like so there are some animals that migrate deeper into the water. The sea stars will all be a little bit bigger in the summer months because they'll be eating more and growing. But generally, it's all pretty much the same. You just kind of got to know where to look. And be careful where you step because I nearly stepped on that guy. I'm being very intentional about every footstep that I make because there's just so much life here. And the whole point of why I'm out here in the dark is to show you guys all this cool stuff. And it would be really a disaster if I came out here and just killed a bunch of sea life. So yeah, I have tons of experience doing this. Not just the nighttime programs, but I think I'm in my 17th year as a professional marine educator. I'm the ed director for Harbor Wild Watch, and we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. Are you gonna go all the way to the bridge, dear? So now we're to the point where the current really rips through here, and so a lot of these rocks don't have a ton of life visible, and it just drops off so steeply. It makes it really hard to walk and really hard for life to be here. But I always like to kind of come check it out and see if I can show you what the tide is doing. So this is the Burley Lagoon, and it empties out into Henderson Bay, which is the body of water, and it's connected to the greater Puget Sound, which is a part of the Salish Sea. So we're right underneath the bridge now. You can see the bridge sorta with my lights. So what I'm hoping you can see is how fast the water is moving. This is not a river. This is the force of the tide. And the tide is pulled by the moon. And so it's basically just like we're rotating underneath this bulge of water. So it's high tide somewhere else in the world and low tide here. Ooh, I really want to go closer, but this is very sinky sand. It's a bad idea, but there's a crab right there. Oh, there's two crabs. Hey, crabs, come closer. So these crabs are kind of in this little section which has accumulated a lot of driftwood, and they're foraging here. Crabs are scavengers. So they're seeing what they can see. Let's turn the black light on. I'm betting this wood, a lot of this wood will fluoresce. Yeah, see that stick right there? How it's like light up blue? There's fungus that grows underneath the bark. Oh, is that a jellyfish? No, it's just a bubble. I got excited about a bubble. Just a bubble. But the crabs fluoresce really nicely, and then a lot of the wood has that fungus that does fluorescence. Okay, I gotta get away from this section. It's too unstable. So maybe you can see the height that we're talking. We have about an 18-foot tidal swing at this location. So between high tide and low tide is roughly 18 vertical feet, which is a lot of water that has to move out. And we have 2 high tides and 2 low tides a day. So every 6 hours, the water changes direction, which is cool. What a wonderful place to live that we get to come to these beaches and get to learn about this stuff. All right, well, we gotta make our way back. Here's the horse clam shells. There's no clam inside. This is filled with rocks. That gives you an idea of the size that some of these clams can attain. It's really big. Horse clam looks like a gooey duck, but a gooey duck would have a more rectangular shaped shell. But essentially it will be down on the ground like that. The siphon of the clam is like a fleshy tube that's gonna stretch upward. Okay, what is this? Is a piece of a dead something. No, it's a leaf. Jeez. Okay, that was a lamb's ear leaf. Ornamental plant. I thought I was looking at some sort of weird cool fish thing. No. All right, I'm back in Sea Star Town. I gotta watch where I walk now. Carefully. It's too bad the sea stars don't fluoresce, because then I could just turn on the black light and see them all really easily. But they don't. They don't really have much need for that. They're brightly colored enough as it is. So we have lots of purple ochre stars. Lots. Oh yeah, here's a bunch of them all together. Oh, this one is even regrowing a couple of limbs. So there's one here, two there, three there. And then mottled sea stars are everywhere. Another ochre star with babies. If there were rocks to turn in this area, which right here there aren't, that is where you'll find a lot of baby stars. The ochre stars really nicely have this kind of star pattern on their back, and so that's one way that you can identify them. They don't always have it. This one, his star pattern is a little bit weak. This is Washington State, the evergreen state, named not just for our big evergreen trees, but also for a lot of our deciduous understory plants, which stay green all year round too. Lots and lots of stars. But I love, look at this teal color. Bright orange. This is the same species. So Evisterius tristellii, this bright orange one, and this teal one, and this beigey one are all the same species. And then we have those purple ones over there are ochre stars. Pyzaster ochraceus is their scientific name. I just love the mottled stars. They just have the coolest coloration. Oh, hey Amanda. Just noticed you're on. I hardly ever look down. Glad to see your name. Pretty purples. We've seen lots of moon snails tonight. Not too many fish though. I was kind of hoping we would catch some more pipefish, because this is a great time of year to see pipes. They kind of come into the shallows a lot more during the winter months. If this is right up your alley, if you're like, wow, I wish I was out on the beach with her right now, I would encourage you to attend the Harbor Wild Watch programs during the summer. We'll be publishing our low tide schedule soon. And if you just love hearing about cool creatures, but maybe don't want to get your feet wet, we have a Cocktails and Fishtails event coming up. I'll be speaking on basically the rated R things that happen at the beach. So the different forms of reproduction. I gotta be careful what I can say on TikTok. And that is a free event. It's happening at Ocean 5 on Valentine's Day. Sorry, dear, if you thought you had romantic plans for us. I have to talk about sea creature reproduction that day. I'm out here with my husband. I'm not just a woman alone in the dark at the beach at night. I brought my security team. Really, he's just carrying all my stuff.
I'm excited about this, and I was just fishing.
Oh, look at that. Oh, you can't see it. It's too washed out. Yeah, look at that bead fluorescing. That plastic really lights up.
Wow.
So let's compare the other light that I have with that one. So you can see that bead glows really strongly. And that black light fluoresces. But it's just a fish hook. Thank you for picking that up. Just trash
Only
now.
one golf ball today.
Oh, only one. That's an improvement. Sometimes we do this beach, and he'll have like a whole backpack full of golf balls, which you should not do. That's just trash. Like, nowhere else would you consider it okay to just chuck pieces of plastic into the wilderness. But for some reason, when you hit it with a mallet really hard, or club, I don't even know what it's called, people think it's okay. So many sea stars. All right, let's go find some more moon snails, because that's the other thing people really love. Beautiful stars and cool. Maybe we could find some nudibranchs out here tonight. This beach is a sandy beach for the most part. Once you get below, kind of it's all like rocks and cobble and gravel. And then it transitions to beautiful soft sand. And that sandy habitat is where we'll see lots more moon snails. This is kind of a favorite location of the sea stars because there's so much food. All those barnacles that's all sea star fodder. They're carnivores, so they'll eat whatever they can catch. Okay. How's your boot repair holding up? All right. Last time we were out here, we discovered my husband's boots have a hole in them, and which is not fun when the water temperature is so cold. So show you this really big clamshell. This is a horse clam, really, really big species of clam. And you can tell it's a horse clam and not a geoduck by the shape of it. See how it's kind of like rounded and bulges outward? A geoduck shell would be a lot more, they're almost like perfect rectangles. Rounded rectangles, mind you, but I repaired my husband's boots today with some like solid UV curing nail gel. So we're gonna see if it works. And if it does, that's gonna save my extra test. Ooh, big clam squirt. Horse clams have really become the super soakers of the beach because they squirt quite dramatically. Okay, what else can we see? So see, we're to the sandy part of the beach. I wish I did not touch that horse clam because now my hand's all wet and cold. It's pretty chilly out here today. I want to say it's about 42 degrees Fahrenheit. So not the coldest. We were out here during the cold snap, and that was really, really cold. I want to say it was like 22 degrees Fahrenheit when we were out here, so below freezing. The animals didn't seem to mind, although some of the crabs were moving a little bit slow. Lots and lots of clamshells strewn about this beach because there's so much activity beneath the surface. Moon snails eating a lot of these clams. These are little bent nose clams, and anytime you see one that has a round hole in it, that's from a moon snail. So there's one. And then even if you find one that doesn't have that round hole, the other half could have been eaten by a moon snail. So a lot of times if the clams don't get unearthed by moon snails, they can live a long time. I think the oldest animal in the world was a clam named Ming because it was first settled out as larvae. There's a little clam boat floating by during the Ming Dynasty. It's over 500 years old, which is super cool. You can count the rings on their shell, but to do that they have to be dead, which is a little bit sad. But yeah, here's another horse clam shell for scale. This is a very popular fishing beach. People love it. So here, this is really funny. there's a whole little hermit crab brigade happening inside this moon snail shell, which is funny. I was gonna check that moon snail shell to see if there were any hermit crabs in it, expecting like one hermit crab living in it. But here is another species of sea star. This is a leather star, and this is a really nice, healthy, big one. A chunky star. We love to see it. Leather sea stars get their name because they feel very smooth, like wet leather, if you were to touch them. They also have a bit of a smell to them. So sometimes I call them the scratch and sniff star. But if you gently touch their dermal surface, this outside, you always want to touch with wet fingers when you're touching sea life. But it will smell a little bit like garlic, a little bit like bleach, or a little bit like gunpowder, depending on who you ask, I guess. I have definitely smelled the garlicness before. So yes, nice big healthy leather star. We see a lot of leather stars out on the Fox Island beaches that we go to. I don't typically see too many of them here. And despite the rain, it's quite a nice, pleasant night out here. It's a little chilly, but I mean, it is February. Can't all be sunshine and warm day at the beach. Sometimes it's just a night at the beach. And I appreciate all of you tuning in. I do love to do this, and it makes it way more fun when we get a ton of people on and lots of new followers and all that. Play that social media game. We love it. So thank you for being here. Thank you especially to those of you who have given gifts through this live stream. We are a nonprofit group, and so your donations that you give through TikTok help us to do free programming. Here is one of the siphons of those horse clams. So this is the part that sticks up above the water. So you can see they have kind of two holes there. One pulls water in and one pulls water out. Oh, thank you for the gifts. Y'all are so good. I wasn't mentioning that to try to get more. I was trying to say thank you to the people who did donate. But let's take a look underneath the black light, what our clam siphon looks like. And it does fluoresce a little bit, but I'm noticing this red algae is just so stunning. And then, of course, tons and tons of little shrimpies all around. So many shrimp. All right, the algae that grows on this clamshell is really fluorescing nicely. And you wouldn't even know it from looking at that clamshell. Looks like an old clamshell, but it's covered in this cool algae. Oh, this is the sinky part of this beach. Here's a moon snail. You don't believe me because it just looks like a chunk of ground, but there's a snail under there. Let me show you a moon snail that's out. Because, oh, here's a gorgeous, look at this blue sea star. Look at this. Okay, let's go find a moon snail that's out and cruising around because they're a lot easier to see. This is where hopefully you guys don't get seasick. It's really hard to walk in this section of the beach, and there's absolutely no way I can hold steady. It's just not gonna happen. It's really mushy at this section of the beach because there are some ghost shrimp that live underneath the surface, and they undermine beneath and make it hard to see. Or hard to walk. The seeing part is, that's fine. Probably should change out the batteries on my headlamp though. It's looking a little dim. Here we go. Here's a moon snail egg collar. These are the eggs of the moon snail. And this is by far the number one question we get asked. What are those trash things on the beach? Because it definitely does not look like an animal made this, let alone a snail. But it's smooth. It's made of mucus and sand. So they pick up sand from around themselves and then extrude this whole thing out. It's a layer of sand and mucus on the outside and the inside, and the eggs are sandwiched in between. There's roughly 500,000 eggs in each egg collar like this. And you can tell a little bit about the animal that laid it. The snail's shell will be the size of the inner circle, and then their foot is as large as the outer circle. And then the moms, once they've made this collar, they make it down below the surface of the sand. Then they'll turn themselves upside down and force this to the surface so that it can break down and wear out with the coming and going of the tide going in and out. Here's another one. And after a couple of weeks of that, of high tide, low tide, high tide, low tide, usually in the spring and summer when the sun can kind of help dry them out and wear and break down that mucus, that is the point that the little moon snails come crawling out of there. And 500,000 in each one means not very many will survive. This is a game of numbers, strength in numbers. They want to maximize their reproductive potential and minimize parental care. So they don't really take care of their babies. They're just going to leave them on the beach. They don't even make sure they hatch. But it's fine because they can produce many of those egg collars. Wow, there are so many. I'm really surprised. It's only February, guys. But I guess I'm not surprised because there's so many of moon snails on the beach. Of course, I say that, and now there's none to show you. Let me know if you see a moon snail there. Like an out and about moon snail, not just a buried one. I've seen about 6 buried ones since I started talking about moon snails, but yeah, there's a bunch of mounds, but not. I want to just see one out so I can show the people. All right, it's a little less sinky here, so hopefully I'll try to film a little better. Let's take a look. Yeah, there's a moon snail there. There's a moon snail here too. But I hate digging them out if I can find one that's just sitting out there, you know? All right, let's turn off the camera and go to the black light for a second and see what we can see. More of the same. Lots and lots of shrimp. Kind of swimming around. All those little zoomies are little shrimpy bodies. All right, nothing too exciting. One of these days I'm gonna find an animal that I didn't even know existed because it's glowing in the black light. You're tricking me with your footsteps too, dear. I said your footsteps are fooling me too. Keep getting excited. I'm like, oh, just kidding. Here's a moon snail that is partially buried. So, okay, we'll talk about this one. Here is the snail. You can see the snail shell. This is the foot here. If you get your finger wet, you can gently touch the foot, and they are ticklish, so they can feel that and they react to that touch. But I promise I'm not harming this animal whatsoever. They're really tough intertidal creatures, and they come to the surface. And the really big ones don't even hardly react at all. But it feels like touching raw chicken. If you were to touch raw chicken breast right from your fridge, if it were ticklish and wiggled away from you a little bit, that's what it's like to touch a moon snail. It's about the same temperature as your fridge out here, the water temperature. It's cool. Here's another moon snail. This one is buried, but we can see that little kind of tube of flesh. It acts like a snorkel to get water from the top of the surface down to their gills. And so that's another way that you can tell there's moon snails active beneath the surface, as you find one of those mounds and see if you can just find that little, and sometimes it's really small, the little curl of flesh that sticks up. It's not a true siphon, I don't believe, because I don't think they can really squish water through it like an octopus can or a clam can, but they definitely do. They definitely do have a need to get water down to their gills. All right, so here, let's check out. We left our light here so that we could come see this animal again. We've got a gorgeous pink star, and our tide's already coming in. What time is it?
11:30.
Oh, geez. Okay, our tide's been coming in for an hour. So I probably ought to wrap this up because my battery's about to die, if I had to guess. So I'll leave you with this marvelous pink star and encourage you to all follow us on our other social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. Try to post different content on all of them, so it's a little bit different each time. But thank y'all for the love. You're such wonderful humans for tuning in and caring about this amazing ecosystem that I care about so very much. So I appreciate all of you for tuning in on this rainy, soggy Thursday night. Thanks, everybody.